Guys, welcome to Sunrise Extra on a Monday. We are talking about what everyone is talking about today, whether you're a basketball fan, you're a parent, you're just a person in the world that, you know, these crazy things happen. The death of Kobe Bryant, his young daughter, and 7 other people in a helicopter yesterday morning on their way to a basketball tournament for his daughter and some of her teammates.
She was only 13 years old, and there were other kids on board.
Her other friend who was 13.
Breaks your heart.
Yeah. So we want to get to Tom Costello of NBC News is really the aviation expert for the network, and he is kind of digging into this investigation. They sent down some updated sound from him that we want to play on, you know, what they're looking into as the cause of this crash.
The LAPD had grounded its chopper fleet yesterday morning because of incredibly dense fog, thick fog, low fog, and low ceilings. And as a result of that, we believe this pilot was flying under what's called special VFR, special visual flight rules. As he was flying, he had to check in with air traffic control, and he was looking at landmarks on the ground, including the highways. But then that fog and the cloud cover got thicker and thicker, and he at some point began to climb into that cloud base, we believe, and then a very sharp turn before slamming into the ground. Now, the question, the question is whether somehow he got spatially disoriented in that cloud cover, in the fog cover, simply lost his orientation.
So you're hearing that, you're seeing that fog. The Los Angeles Times this morning interviewed one of the former pilots of this exact helicopter, and he personally flew Kobe Bryant for several years as a pilot and said the maintenance record of this chopper was immaculate. It was a fantastic, you know, helicopter to work in, and he believes that it's most likely caused by bad weather than any kind of engine or mechanical issue, because a twin-engine failure on that aircraft, according to him, it just does not happen.
But wait a minute, are you saying, and was Tom saying, that he was not flying with the instruments on the plane? It was a visual thing in fog and then went up into the fog? Why would he not be using the instruments?
So according to the LA Times, that helicopter is equipped with you know, instruments that could fly in whatever kind of weather, and it would have been allowed to. However, the last audio dispatch between the pilot and the tower was that they were in visual flight, a scenario where it was just based on sight. I don't know, but I mean,
when Tom Costello says that he may have been just disoriented, it does remind me of JFK flying over the water and didn't know where the horizon was versus the water and that type of thing.
Right.
When a pilot is, and JFK was not instrument certified, as I recall, but this pilot was. I don't know why the heck you wouldn't be.
And he says, based on judging from a public record of the flight path and the debris field, it had to have been traveling very fast, about 160 miles per hour.
My God.
800 pounds of fuel on board it would have had. That's enough to start a pretty big fire.
Wow.
It's just horrible. I mean...
Right. There were 2 points that stuck out to me. One was reading about how LA and their police force chose not to fly their helicopters yesterday. And they said the conditions yesterday in that part of California were such that they would not fly. Obviously, Kobe and his pilot there of that helicopter chose to fly. But I was also listening to, you know, there was some back and forth between air traffic control and this helicopter, helping them navigate through these foggy conditions. There was part of me who was thinking, geez, why didn't someone just tell them to land? It wasn't safe enough to fly. If it wasn't, you know, if it wasn't safe enough to fly. The police said, in their opinion, it wasn't, right? I mean, that's what the LA police said. In their opinion, it was not, the conditions were not safe enough for them to fly their helicopters yesterday. And again, just hearing about this communication, it was obviously, if nothing else, tricky flying conditions, to probably put it very mildly. This is so hard to sort of digest, and there was a couple of comments, and I just wanted to share those, not on the live stream. These were comments by viewers who commented on our Facebook page this morning, one just before 6 o'clock, the other around 6:45, and they both basically said the same thing. That being this, and I'll take Mary's comment because it sums up both of these women's comments. Kobe Bryant will be missed, and it is so sad about this crash, but there were other people on that flight, and they will be missed as well. Not one single word she says, not one has been said about the other people. Your station, as well as other stations, are biased toward fame and fortune. Everybody matters. Give some recognition towards all in your community and in your commentary. Thanks, she says, signed Mary. And number one, I say that's not true, right? I mean, we've mentioned the others on board, and especially the 13-year-old daughter of Kobe Bryant, but I was thinking about this myself yesterday. Why does this story bother me so much? Because we hear about tragic stories all the time, the loss of life, the sudden loss of life. Why is this one sitting with me so much? Just because I watched Kobe Bryant play basketball? And I think it's more about a guy who you just saw as being in the prime of life, at the top of life, who had the whole world in front of him, with 4 young children. It could have been anyone. In this case, it happened to be Kobe Bryant, but it's that person that I kind of know from afar, to see his life taken away so quickly. And yes, then when we learned that one of his daughters was on board that helicopter as well, it became a much more powerful and harder hitting story. It hurt even more.
At least 2 children on board. And there is a slight Oregon connection to this, and we have this on our website, kgw.com, that a great baseball player who played for the Ducks from 2010 to 2013, his father, his mother, and his young sister were all killed yesterday on the plane. The young sister was playing on that basketball team with Kobe's daughter, and JJ Altabera?
The player
yeah.
for the Oregon Ducks, he played back in 2013. It's been a few years, so he was an older sibling.
His dad was a baseball coach down in Southern California for many years.
A legendary junior college baseball coach on board that helicopter.
Yeah, and they were taking their daughter to the basketball tournament. And yeah, it's just horrible. And there was, I think, 2 other mothers, along with his wife, that were on. But I think it's just the suddenness. I mean, there was, and we played it this morning, a tweet from the writer for the Long Beach Post. It's like, I don't know who that guy is, but NBA teams were retweeting him, and he likened it to, this is the JFK moment for Southern California. Of, you know, I mean, you think of LA, how massive it is, and how many types of, you know, diverse people and neighborhoods there are. And he, you know, just described how the Lakers brought everyone together and wiped all that, you know, everyone was one kind of college basketball town when you watch the Lakers. And that's what, you know, that sport did for them.
And it's the accident factor. Because I was thinking, you know, we lost Jerome Kersey, right, a Blazers legend, just a few years ago. That was also very sudden. That made me very sad. It wasn't as impactful. I don't know if that's because it was a health-related death, and we in our minds we tell ourselves that those things can happen. I convinced myself that things like what happened yesterday just don't happen to everyday people. You know, I can go up on my plane flight to wherever every day, and I'm going to be okay. And then yesterday, for these guys, for this group, for those 9, for Kobe Bryant and his daughter, it just was not okay. It did not work out the way it's supposed to work out every single time.
I don't know. I think when you mention that Kobe was in the prime of his life, and he had young kids, and he had his second act, and he was successful at that. I don't think that it's that surprising that people are reacting to this, because it is, you feel like you know them. And we always react more strongly to people that we know or think we know. It's not that those other lives are any less important whatsoever, but because those were not to the same level that everybody knew, you gravitate to the one person that you knew.
There's a connection there. He didn't have it with us, but we had it with him.
Right, right. And it definitely does not diminish anything else. But boy, I mean, I was talking to my family when I heard about it, and I thought, you know, none of us, nobody gets up in the morning and go, hey, this is my last few hours on Earth. Like, you just never know.
Did you ever get to see him play?
You know, that's a good question. I can't recall if I ever saw Kobe Bryant play. I guess if I had seen it, I would have remembered it. But I remember growing up in Philadelphia. I graduated in 1992. He graduated in 1996. You graduated what year, Chris?
I graduated in 96. He was actually slated to play in a game against my high school basketball team, and I did not go to the game.
Oh, wow.
As a lower, yeah, he played for Lower Merion High School.
And I played some pickup basketball games in that Lower Merion High School gym. That's my closest thing to connection there. Not even a high school game, because I couldn't make the high school team. But the point being that I do recall for sure, 1996, the cover of Sports Illustrated, this Lower Merion High School kid that had his legs spread, the ball out on the cover, and at the time I'm thinking, there's no way he's going to be able to hang in the NBA. He's 17, you know, he's not ready for this.
Scrawny little
8-time All-Star, 5.
There was jealousy there too, right? I was 21 or 22 at the time thinking, why is this guy getting this kind of life, you know? Look at this guy. Because I felt so close in age to him and then at the time. But no, I don't think I ever saw Kobe Bryant play in person, to be honest with you.
My dad took me to a Blazer game when I was younger, and I got to see him play at Rose Garden. And, or maybe it would have been
The Coliseum? Would it be? No.
What year? No, it was definitely the Rose Garden.
Yeah, it was the Rose Garden.
Rose Garden. Yeah, because the Rose Garden came in, what, 96?
Isn't that crazy, though? I mean, because growing up as a Blazer fan, we loved to hate Kobe.
Oh, yes.
He was just so
villain.
clutch. Yes, he would. He would just daggers left and right, break our hearts left and right, because he was that good.
I remember the little signs that I think we've talked about this. The Oregonian would stick in the paper that said "Beat LA." You know, when we were in like the Western Conference Finals, and I had that in my bedroom window.
Absolutely.
I was like so excited to watch the game every night. Let us know any memories you guys have. People have been sharing them on our Facebook page. Dina Cooper says, my childhood was influenced by his greatness. Scott Sturr says, outshining every player at the 1998 All-Star Game in New York at 19 years old. The guy was simply amazing. Mark McDonald, R.I.P. Kobe Bryant in our prayers. Julie giving a Bible quote, time and unexpected events overtake them all. All the memory of the dead are soon forgotten.
Alex Parker on our Facebook feed says, I remember when I was 8 years old, Jerry West traded for Kobe.
Right.
Yeah.
No, people forget that he actually wasn't drafted by the Lakers. He was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets. Am I right about that, Jay, behind the camera?
Yes.
And on draft day, they made that trade. I'm thinking going into that draft all along, the Lakers had made their play and Charlotte knew it was going to happen. But technically speaking, he was drafted by Charlotte, who then traded him to the Lakers for Vlade Divac, and there may have been other players involved. But he was technically a Charlotte Hornet for a moment, but never wore another jersey in his entire career other than a Lakers jersey.
And, you know, he was so young, but he had been around forever, right? Like, it's like he was always there. It's hard to remember a time when he really wasn't in our consciousness.
Right. Well, he didn't get as much play in his high school years as, say, LeBron did.
Yeah.
LeBron's entire senior year of high school, we all knew about him. They had games on ESPN. Kobe didn't get that kind of attention in 1996. I just don't think media was up to speed with that yet. But he was known as a high school senior. Everyone knew that this kid was thinking about going straight to the NBA and was weighing whether that was a good decision or not. So that was 1996. That's 24 years ago. So yes, he has been in our consciousness. He's been in the public eye for those 24 years. Obviously, more than half of his life has been in the public eye.
It's kind of cool to see. I was showing Drew, there's a petition now. Jay, over 200,000 fans have signed this petition to make Kobe Bryant the new NBA logo, and I didn't know this, so it would look like this. Versus, and it's Jerry West, right? Who is the outline of the NBA logo right now, but a lot of fans wanting this to be the picture. And
that would be a heck of a tribute.
Cool. And
I just cannot
or to retire his number league-wide.
What his wife is going through. That's the first thing I thought, is I could not get that out of my mind. All through the day, it just kept popping back in.
No, I thought to myself, she can't stop crying. I'm sure, like, right? How do you stop?
You couldn't. You would be numb and in shock, and I don't even know what. I honestly, I just kind of took a moment to try and just send some good thoughts, just have a moment of reflection, because that just broke my heart.
And while she's dealing with all that, she has 3 other daughters, and one of them is only 7 months old. I hadn't realized that, you kind of forget these things. You're not paying attention to all the details, and then you're reminded yesterday, yes, his 4th daughter was just born last June.
So there was a 7 months old, and then doesn't he have like a 3-year-old?
So this was, yes. Go ahead, Jay. 17, 13, 3, and 7 months.
Right. So the little ones, I mean, the 3-year-old is now getting to that, where's Daddy? The little one. But the 17-year-old, I mean, just so
and he's an adult now. The man who was, the U of O baseball star, his entire family is gone now.
His dad, mother, and sister.
Mom, dad, and sister gone.
Oh my God.
I saw the interview last night with, it was Jimmy Kimmel. had interviewed Kobe a few months ago on the show, and Kobe was talking about his oldest daughter and his second daughter, his 17-year-old and his 13-year-old. And he talked about the 17-year-old being so responsible. He said, like, you know, as he described it, would be the typical oldest child. Very responsible. When she started driving at 16, he said, you know, she didn't drive like I ever drove. Like, both hands were right here in the wheel where they're supposed to be, paying attention to what was going on around her, never wanted to turn the radio up. And he described his second child, Gianna, who's his 13-year-old, who was also lost in that accident yesterday, as just being sort of a little bit more unpredictable, is the way he put it. He wasn't sure, you know, which direction she was going to go in, but he loved that about her, too, that she had so much fire in her. And, you know, honestly, I had never seen this young lady play basketball until yesterday. Started pulling up some video of her playing. And
she was headed like for the WNBA.
She was good.
Yeah.
I mean, she's only 13, so a lot can happen between 13 and the WNBA.
But he was really
but she was certainly passionate
her.
about the game.
Yeah.
And he was passionate about women's basketball. I mean, you know, women's basketball has always taken a back seat, let's be honest, to men's hoops. We know that, right? Still looking for the respect of the men. To have a guy like Kobe Bryant, one of the
100%.
greatest of all time, backing your sport and helping to put it, you know, in people's vision, that's a huge loss for women's basketball.
And all the support he gave the Oregon Ducks women's team and Sabrina Ionescu. I mean,
What is the connection there? Remind me.
I was hoping I could ask you that question.
Wait,
you have the
but do
answer.
you
I know
remember
she's so
she had some,
But
you
was it
guys
they
will
grew
weigh
up
in.
together, or
No,
a camp
she
or
had
something?
She had that huge game, right? You remember she wrote like a big post for the university. It was
wasn't that long ago, like
no,
within
it
the past
wasn't. But
year or
she
so.
had some fantastic game, and he like tweeted her and gave her props, and people were like, "Oh my God, Kobe's! You know, what do you think of that?"
Yeah.
And I think that's how they started
Okay.
talking.
Okay, I didn't know if it
vaguely
was-
remember that. I can't remember all the details.
I don't remember that at all, Brenda, to be honest with you. So if you have any more details on what is the connection,
Let me
because
see
she
if I
kept
can
referring to
Google it
Kobe
real
as
quick.
a friend, like a close friend. And to
Right.
me, like there has to be something a little deeper there than just him reaching out to her.
well, and you know, the Ducks and the Beavers had to play yesterday
Yes.
after hearing the news. All the NBA teams had to play after hearing the news.
Yes.
There was a lot of, you know, push to try to get the NBA to cancel the
Right.
games.
There was talk of that. You know, I don't know how far up the chain
Right.
that idea went. Clearly, they played the games, and because some of the games on the East Coast were happening
Right.
quickly after the news of this broke. I mean, most of those teams were warming up in the court. Fans were in the stands. Those games were essentially underway
Right.
almost.
Well, how weird for the Grammys to.
Right,
I
at
mean,
the
they
Staples
go
Center.
on so early now to be live, you know, for East and West Coast.
Right.
That they're in the Staples Center when, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people start gathering outside. And, I mean, adding performances of Boys to Men, you know, singing with Alicia Keys and that powerful stuff right outside.
You know, sometimes I do think about, you know, always stuff like this, tragic. Whenever a young child dies, for whatever reason, I always think, why, right? Why would that happen? Why does that have to happen? What's the reason? And sometimes, you know, you can look at little kids that are going through like a tough disease and they're battling through it, and I go, you know, maybe this person is just, maybe this young child was just here to bring perspective to all of us, to show us what real strength is all about, to inspire us to lead, you know, greater lives. I'm thinking about this yesterday going, man, wouldn't it have been better if they were just here still? Couldn't they have done more? Couldn't they have inspired more just by still being here? You know, it was hard for me to wrap my head around the why. Then I just, you know, then you just shut down
I
that
just
kind of
hope it's
thinking.
not a case of like, you know, we got to get to where we're going. We just got to get there. Let's fly.
Apparently he used this helicopter quite often to beat the LA traffic as it was
It
described.
has his logo on the side. He's had it for many, many years, whether he was leasing it from, it's owned by a helicopter charter company.
Well, there's an article, I think it's ESPN, but people were talking about the pilot and what a sweet man he was and what an experienced man he was and how he was teaching other helicopter pilots to learn to fly.
Okay.
So, you know, it's I don't know.
These are live pictures of the crash site near Calabasas, California, of them. And what was it? It was even too foggy yesterday for them to get there.
Well, they had to
Firefighters had to be
hike
repelled in and hiked in
Wow.
to get to the crash site. Yep. Cascade joining us on the Facebook live feed this morning on our Sunrise Extra live stream. Cascade said Kobe was also a regular at UConn women's basketball games. It wasn't,
cool.
you know, he wasn't specific as far as fandom goes to the Oregon Ducks. He really was
Just a
all
fan
about
of the
women's
game,
basketball.
really.
Yep.
He was
And I'm
just
sure
obsessed, yeah.
I think it was because he probably looked at that second daughter, Gianna, and said, this has become her passion, and I want to share in this passion with her. And we're not just going to sit here and watch the guys play in the NBA. We're going to go see some of the best women's players that she can sort of look up to and admire.
Yeah. Do we have that story from the Blazer game last night that we could queue up? Because I think it was really cool to see fans, you know, who said, this is my one and only time I'm going to wear a Lakers jersey or a Lakers hat, because I'm a diehard Blazer fan. But people last night outside the Moda Center, we played the Indiana Pacers last night, and
really appreciated, I guess, Carmelo Anthony's soundbite too.
They'll be in that story that we're going to.
Yeah, are we?
Jess is working on getting that up.
Ready.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
I thought Magic Johnson and the tweet that he put out yesterday, you know, in the middle of that tweet, you know, he mentioned or described Kobe as the greatest Laker of all time. And it was sort of just kind of in the middle of that tweet, but I thought that said a lot right there, because that franchise has more great players than any other. I mean, I would say they have more than even the Celtics. It's close. It's probably neck and neck. But for Magic, who could arguably be called the greatest Laker of all time, to put that on Kobe, ahead of Shaq, ahead of Kareem, ahead of himself. And you think about it, you know what? He's the only one who played all 20 years with that franchise. Magic didn't play that long. Kareem split his time between two clubs. LeBron's only been there a few seasons. He really was the greatest Laker of all time.
Okay, we have that story from last night's Blazer game of fans paying tribute.
The basketball world lost a legend, and fans lost an icon they looked up to. Many told me they watched Kobe Bryant growing up.
Oh yeah, I watched. He was like our Michael Jordan growing up, really. Like him and LeBron James are the two like biggest and like most inspiring players, at least for my age group and everything.
Oh, incredible. I mean, he was just a thrill to watch every single game. He's like one of my favorite players of all time. So just seeing him pass on is just really upsetting.
Oh yeah, it was so much fun watching him play. I rooted against him so much because I'm a Blazer fan, but he was so much fun to root against. But he was a lot of fun to watch as well.
The Rip City sign outside the Moda Center became a place for Blazers fans to stop and honor Kobe, as the news of his death is still sinking in.
It was absolutely shocking, because Kobe is a legend to me.
It's a tragic loss. I got 3 kids myself, so I can't even imagine.
Super sad, really sad. It's just heartbreaking for him and everyone that was on the helicopter.
Even just walking down the streets in Portland, everyone was just kind of shocked. But yeah, it's devastating news.
Before the game, the Blazers paused for a 24-second moment of silence for number 24. Then after tip-off, the Blazers took a 24-second shot clock violation in Kobe's memory. The Pacers followed with an 8-second violation, since Kobe also wore the number 8.
I mean, Kobe was the game of basketball, still is the game of basketball. Like so many players now, form their game from him.
The one thing about Kobe that I'll always remember is his competitiveness and his drive and his willingness to be the best, and that's something I always respected.
So today, many fans put their rivalry aside and traded in their Blazers jerseys for Lakers gear.
Prayers and thoughts go out to his family, of course. He was one of my favorite players of all time. It's a real tragedy, and I think it's very respectful to wear his gear. So,
I'm not a Laker fan. Never been a Laker fan, but as a basketball fan, what he did for the NBA is just incredible. Just out of respect, one time I'll wear a Laker jersey for one time for him.
Lynn.
So appreciated hearing from the fans there last night, and of course we appreciate hearing all of your thoughts on our live stream this morning. There's one more we're going to read because Jamie Ralston, we know that you watch every day. It seems like you're always commenting on the stream, and we appreciate that. And I asked the question before of why. I know that it's a question that sometimes can't be answered. I get caught up in like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And she says, I feel like in response to that, she says, there is not always a why. Sometimes it's just an is. And yes, there is no lesson here. It would be better if they were just here. She says, I know from experience, I know what I'm talking about because I'm a mom who has lost a child herself. Wow. And Jamie, I appreciate you sharing that, and that means a lot to me because you're right, sometimes there just is not a why. So we really appreciate you, Jamie, sharing those thoughts with us today. tough and difficult edition of Sunrise Extra.
Yeah.
A lot of people processing what was a tragic story yesterday, not just about Kobe, but also his daughter and the 7 other people that were on that helicopter yesterday that crashed in Southern California. So thank you for joining us here today on a Monday. We'll be back at it tomorrow on Tuesday.